Well, I have spoken already, as you know, about the horror and barbarism which has overtaken Israel, and by way of retaliation, innocent people in the Gaza Strip. What on earth, though, do we make of this, other than it does appear to represent a massive intelligence failure within Israel that allowed such a surprise assault? But in scenes which I'm sure you have witnessed on social media, this is the behaviour of savages. Hamas is a terrorist organisation whose fighters poured into the Jewish state, killing at least 350 Israelis and taking dozens of them hostage. They are horrific scenes, the bodies of dead Israeli civilians strewn in the streets of southern Israel. Women and children dragged away screaming by Hamas militants. The body of a half-naked Israeli woman paraded on an open truck inside Gaza. Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has declared Israel is at war, and he vowed to pound Hamas's hiding places to rubble amid questions over the staggering intelligence failure. Netanyahu has announced a massive call-up of army reserves, saying, and I quote, "We will win this war, but the price will be unbearably heavy. We will take mighty vengeance for this black day. All the places where Hamas hides, operates from, we will turn them into cities of ruin. We will restore security to the citizens of Israel, and we will win." It is unspeakably barbaric stuff. Dave Sharma is a former federal politician, an outstanding intellect, and a former ambassador to Israel, appointed at the age of 38. He joins me on a day where I've said humanity itself is on the rack. Dave, thank you for your time. 6:30 a.m. local time Saturday, the day after the 50th anniversary of the Yom Kippur War, and thousands of rockets are aimed as far as Tel Aviv and Jerusalem. What, Dave Sharma, has prompted this?
Well, you have a terrorist organisation here, Alan, that has always been committed to the destruction of Israel and the Jewish state, that does not recognise Israel's right to exist. But as to why they decided now to do this, to launch such a bold and horrific offensive, I think I can only conclude that Iran has been involved in some way. Hamas knows that this will invite, as it should, a catastrophic response from Israel. And I think the only reason they could have looked to have done this is because of some broader regional interest. And I think all the fingers there point to Iran. Iran's desire to make sure that broader peace in the Middle East is not achieved, that Israel does not find a way to reach a diplomatic agreement with Saudi Arabia, and to keep the flame, if you like, of Israeli rejectionism of the state of Israel alive.
This is an uncharacteristic, though, Dave, isn't it, collapse of Israeli security. I mean, Hamas fighters breached Gaza's security barrier in ground vehicles, motorised paragliders and boats. How, given that this was really something about which Israel historically has boasted, its intelligence, its security, how can this possibly happen?
Well, it's a gross intelligence and operational failure, Alan. I mean, this is, frankly speaking, a humiliation for the state of Israel and its military. This is on a par or perhaps worse than the intelligence failure that preceded the Yom Kippur War almost 50 years ago this week, as you said. Israel obviously didn't see the timing of this attack coming. They also did not estimate Hamas's new capabilities and sophistication, which they demonstrated. But even in live time, if you like, once Hamas breached the border, Israeli alerts and alarm systems and intelligence detection methods should all have been going off red hot, and they weren't, and it took a very long time for the Israeli Defence Forces to be stood up and to deploy in this area. I mean, the divisional headquarters of the Gaza division, the main military command down in that part of Israel, was overrun by Hamas militants. This is how bad it was.
I mean, our viewers are looking at pictures here on the screen. It's horrific. Is this sort of Israel's 9/11?
Absolutely. It is Israel's 9/11. I mean, we look at how many civilians have died. I think it's now in close to 900 Israeli civilians have been killed. The surprise of this attack, but more profoundly, and like 9/11, the deep, deep shock to Israel's sense of security and the deep trauma that's been inflicted right in the heartland of the civilian population, just as 9/11 did. I think has a lot of parallels with that. And I think you will see with Israel's military response that it will be equally determined and equally uncompromising as we saw the US military response after 9/11.
How do you pronounce that town, Sderot, near Gaza?
Sderot.
Sderot. I mean, I just saw all those pictures of bodies strewn on the streets, dead people inside cars, windscreens shattered by bullets, and an Israeli military vehicle seized and then driven back into Gaza to be met by cheering crowds. How do we differentiate here? Because my understanding, and you'd know more about this than I would, is that the Gazans absolutely hate Hamas. So there would be Palestinians who wouldn't have any sympathy at all for the behaviour of Hamas.
That's quite right. I mean, the Gazan population is effectively held hostage by Hamas. They are as much victims of Hamas as anyone. Hamas has been in control of that territory since 2005. They rule with an iron fist. They certainly don't tolerate any dissent, but they also use all the resources of Gaza, limited as they are, entirely to fund their military operations, to construct tunnels, to buy weaponry, to build ammunition, with one purpose, which is to antagonise, invade and attack the state of Israel. So I feel deeply for the Palestinian population in Gaza. They've been the victims of Hamas now for well over a dozen years, and they are going to be the victims now of this coming war. And that's a tragedy. But
it is. I think we've got to make that rather clear distinction. The Israeli Army Major General Elyan said the attackers had, quote, opened the gates of hell. He said Hamas made the decision and Hamas will bear responsibility.